I was the Alpha King's mate until he chose to destroy me, but he didn't know my secret. And the night he broke our sacred bond in front of the whole pack, something inside me woke up. 1 second, I'm the royal healer. The next, I'm thrown out like trash, left to die in rogue territory. But the pain doesn't just break my heart. It cracks open a power nobody was supposed to see. Now the Alpha King picks a new mate. The kingdom starts falling apart, and a dark curse spreads through the wolves like fire. And somehow, even with our bond severed, I can still feel him calling for me. I'm the secret they hunted for centuries. And if I return, I won't be the same girl he rejected. So tell me, when the moon turns dangerous, will I save the king who ruined me? Or become the reason his world burns? Luna's fingers traced gentle patterns on Darius's muscular forearm, her healing energy soft and warm in the quiet of their private chambers. Candlelight flickered against the stone walls, casting dancing shadows that seemed to pulse with an almost living energy. The recent warriors had been tended to, broken bones mended, deep wounds sealed with her moon-blessed touch. And for a moment, peace settled between them. "You're tense," she murmured, feeling the rigid set of his shoulders. Darius didn't immediately respond. His jaw was set, eyes distant, looking beyond the ornate tapestries that depicted centuries of pack history. Something was brewing beneath his controlled exterior. The moment shattered when Marcus burst through the doors. His formal robes were slightly disheveled, a rare breach of his typically immaculate presentation. The advisor's scent carried a sharp tang of anxiety, something that immediately set Luna's wolf instincts on high alert. "My king," Marcus said, his voice clipped and urgent. Urgent intelligence from the border scouts. Darius straightened, his alpha presence filling the room. Luna felt an immediate shift, not just in his posture, but in their mate bond. Where moments before there had been a warm connection, now something cold and distant wedged between them. "The Shadow Pack has formed an unexpected alliance," Marcus continued. "They've united with the Crimson Ridge Pack and the Northern Timber Clan. 3 packs, traditionally rivals, now aligned against us." Luna watched Darius carefully. His hand, which had been resting near hers, subtly withdrew. The movement was so slight that anyone else might have missed it. But she felt it. Not just physically, but through their bond. Something was wrong. When she reached tentatively through their mate connection, searching for his emotional landscape, she encountered something unexpected. Where she typically found warmth, protectiveness, and a deep underlying current of passion, now there was nothing. A blank, cold emptiness that made her wolf whimper in confused distress. Darius's attention remained fixed on Marcus, completely ignoring Luna's growing unease. "Details," he commanded. "Specifics of their alliance. Troop movements, potential strategies." Marcus began detailing border movements, tactical positions, potential attack vectors. Luna listened, but her focus was divided. Something was happening with Darius, something that went beyond mere political tension. The mate bond between werewolves was sacred, unbreakable. A connection deeper than mere emotional attachment, but a spiritual linking of 2 souls. For Darius to suddenly feel so distant, so cold, it was unprecedented. Her wolf stirred restlessly inside her, sensing something was fundamentally wrong. The morning light filtered through the heavy palace curtains, casting long shadows across the marble floors. Luna dressed carefully, her movements deliberate, sensing something had changed. The usual bustle of palace servants seemed muted, whispers hanging in the air like unspoken tension. When she approached the War Council chambers, her steps were measured. The 2 guards stationed at the ornate wooden doors stood like statues, their muscular frames blocking her path. "I need to enter," Luna said, her voice calm but firm. The guard on the left, a seasoned warrior with a jagged scar running down his cheek, bowed slightly. "Apologies, Lady Luna. The council is closed to all but strategic personnel today." She knew the phrase was carefully chosen. Strategic personnel. Not her. Through the thick wooden doors, muffled voices carried. Luna's enhanced hearing, a gift of her moon-blessed heritage, picked up Marcus's distinct tone. "She cannot shift," Marcus was saying, his voice sharp and cutting. "What use is a mate who cannot transform? Our king needs a warrior beside him, not a healer who—" Luna's breath caught. Her wolf stirred inside her, a mixture of hurt and rising defiance. The guards remained immovable, their expressions a perfect blend of respect and absolute dismissal. Luna recognized the tactic. They weren't being cruel, just professionally distant. Hours passed. Luna wandered the palace halls, her mind racing. The palace, usually a place of comfort, now felt like a maze of silent judgments and whispered conversations that stopped when she approached. By evening, she was prepared. When Darius returned to their chambers, she would demand answers. As twilight painted the sky in deep purples and blues, Darius entered their private space. His armor was dusty from strategy meetings, his presence carrying the weight of unspoken decisions. Luna stood by the window, her silhouette sharp against the moonlight. "We need to talk." Darius's response was measured, distant. His eyes, usually warm with a connection to her, now seemed to look everywhere but directly at her. "There are difficult decisions ahead." The phrase was clinical, detached, nothing like the passionate, protective mate she had known. "Difficult decisions about what?" Luna pressed. Her wolf prowled just beneath her skin, sensing something fundamentally wrong with their bond. Their mate connection, once a blazing, unbreakable link, now flickered like a candle struggling against a harsh wind. Where there had been warmth, now there was only a distant, growing chill. Darius shifted, his massive frame suddenly feeling more like a barrier than a comfort. "The pack's survival requires tough choices." Luna felt something breaking, not just in the moment, but in the very foundation of their connection. Something was happening, something that threatened everything they had built together. And she was determined to understand why. The morning sun cast long shadows across the palace courtyard as the Mountain Pack delegation arrived. Luna stood on the high balcony, her fingers gripping the marble railing so tightly her knuckles turned white. Below, the procession moved with military precision, warriors in matching dark gray uniforms, their movements synchronized like a living machine. At the center rode Selena, her presence commanding attention. Even from a distance, Luna could see why the wolf was legendary. Selena sat atop her horse with perfect posture, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a tight braid that spoke of discipline and controlled power. Where Luna's presence was soft and healing, Selena radiated a dangerous, calculated strength. Darius stepped forward to greet the delegation. Luna watched, her wolf instincts prickling with an uncomfortable tension. Something about the way Darius moved, the set of his shoulders, the intensity of his greeting, felt different from his usual formal diplomatic interactions. As Selena dismounted, Darius extended his hand. The gesture seemed routine at first, but then Luna saw it, a moment that sent a sharp physical pain through her mate bond. Darius's hand touched Selena's, a brief contact that felt anything but accidental. His fingers lingered a fraction too long, and Luna felt a wave of agony slice through her chest. The mate bond between her and Darius had always been a living thing, a warm, constant connection that hummed with shared emotions and unspoken understanding. Now, it felt like a fraying thread, each touch between Darius and Selena pulling it closer to breaking. Luna's breath caught. Her wolf rose inside her, a mixture of pain and rising anger. Something was happening. Something was wrong. The delegation moved toward the palace entrance. Luna watched as Darius walked beside Selena, their conversation too low to hear, but clearly intense. The way they moved together suggested a familiarity that made Luna's heart clench. "My lady!" A servant's voice broke her concentration. "Would you like to prepare for the welcome feast?" Luna turned, her movements mechanical. "Yes," she managed, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside her. That night, as darkness wrapped around the palace, Luna's dreams became a window to another time. Her mother Celeste appeared, not as a solid form, but as a shimmering presence that seemed caught between memory and warning. "Hide the moon's gift," Celeste whispered, her voice echoing with urgency. "Until the eclipse comes." The dream felt different from ordinary dreams. It carried a weight of prophecy, of hidden knowledge passed between generations. Luna could smell her mother's familiar scent, lavender and moonlight, even as the dream began to fade. She awoke with a start, sweat beading on her forehead. The moon hung large outside her window, casting silver light across the chamber. Something had changed. Something was coming. The mate bond with Darius felt different, diminished, but not completely severed. Like a connection waiting to be either fully restored or completely broken. Luna's fingers traced the delicate moonstone pendant her mother had left her, the only inheritance she had from Celeste. Its smooth surface seemed to pulse with a hidden energy, a secret waiting to be understood. Outside her window, the night watched and waited. The full moon gathering was a sacred tradition in the werewolf kingdom, a time when every pack member, from the lowest Omega to the highest-ranking Alpha, gathered in the massive stone hall that had witnessed centuries of pack history. Intricate tapestries depicting ancient battles and pack legends lined the walls, their silver threads catching the moonlight that streamed through high, arched windows. Luna stood near the back of the hall, her white dress a stark contrast to the deep crimson and midnight blue uniforms of the pack warriors. Something felt different tonight. The air itself seemed charged with an electric tension that made the fine hairs on her arms stand on end. Her wolf senses were on high alert, a low warning growl rumbling deep in her chest, a sound she quickly suppressed. Darius stood at the center of the raised platform, his alpha presence filling the room. He wore the traditional ceremonial armor of the royal pack, black leather reinforced with silver plates, the royal crest gleaming on his chest. His face was a mask of controlled emotion, sharp and unyielding as a blade. When he spoke, his voice rang out clear and commanding. "Pack members," Darius began, his words cutting through the murmur of conversations. "I stand before you today to address a matter of critical importance to our kingdom's survival." Luna felt a cold dread settle in her stomach. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Selena stood just behind Darius, her silver-streaked hair pulled back, her posture perfect. There was a calculated triumph in her eyes that made Luna's wolf want to snarl. "For the strength of our people," Darius continued, each word precise and deliberate. "I must make a choice that will ensure our continued protection against the growing threats from the Shadow Pack and our eastern enemies." The hall had gone completely silent. Even the youngest pups seemed to sense the gravity of the moment. "I am severing my mate bond with Luna," Darius announced, his voice never wavering. "And I will take Selena as my new mate." The words hung in the air like a physical blow. Luna felt the world tilt. Around her, pack members shifted uncomfortably. Some looked shocked. Others, those close to the royal advisors, seemed unsurprised, even expectant. But Luna heard nothing except the sound of her own heart breaking. Darius began the ancient ritual of rejection, words that would formally and magically sever their mate bond. Each syllable was a knife, cutting deeper than any physical wound could. "I reject you," he intoned, the formal words echoing through the hall. "I release you from our bond. By blood and moon, I cut our connection." Luna's anguished scream tore through the great hall. It was a sound of pure primal pain, part human, part wolf. A cry that spoke of betrayal so profound it threatened to shatter reality itself. As the bond broke, something deep within Luna cracked open. For just a moment, her eyes flashed with an impossible silvery light, bright as moonfire, ancient as the first wolf's breath. And then she collapsed. The dawn was merciless, painting the sky in harsh shades of gray and pale yellow as Luna was forcibly escorted from the palace grounds. Her white dress, once pristine, was now torn and stained with dirt and dried blood from her collapse. The royal guards kept a careful distance, their hands on their weapons, watching her like a wounded animal they were afraid might suddenly turn dangerous. Luna's body felt like it was on fire. The severed mate bond wasn't just a metaphorical wound. It burned through her veins like liquid fire, each pulse of her heart sending waves of agony that made her stumble. Her wolf, the core of her supernatural self, was howling in a pain so profound it threatened to consume her entirely. The forest seemed to blur around her. Pine trees swayed, their branches a green-brown smear against the morning sky. Luna's vision wavered, her steps increasingly unsteady. She clutched a small bundle, the only supplies she'd been allowed. A water skin, a small packet of dried meat, a thin blanket, bare survival essentials for someone being cast out. By midday, the border guards appeared. Their scent was sharp with tension, their eyes hard and suspicious. Luna knew she was approaching the edge of controlled pack territory, the lawless region where rogues and outcasts survived. "Go no further," one guard warned, his hand on his weapon. "Beyond this point is rogue territory. We cannot protect you." Protection. The word seemed to mock her. She had been the mate of the Alpha King, and now she was less than nothing. With a final harsh push, the guards forced her across the invisible boundary. Luna stumbled, her legs finally giving way beneath her. The forest floor was soft with moss and fallen pine needles. A nearby stream bubbled, its water crystal clear and dancing with sunlight. Luna crawled, each movement a battle against the pain consuming her. Her body was trying to shift. She could feel the wolf inside her struggling to break free. But something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Instead of a smooth transformation, her muscles seized. Convulsions racked her body. She was neither human nor wolf, trapped in an agonizing in-between state. The stream's water reflected her image. Luna saw herself, pale, trembling, eyes wide with confusion and pain. And then, something else. Her mother's spirit materialized beside the water. Celeste looked exactly as Luna remembered, ethereal, with silver-touched hair and eyes that held ancient wisdom. But this was no ordinary memory. This was a visitation. "My daughter," Celeste's spirit spoke, her voice like wind through silver leaves. "The time has come." Luna could barely speak through her pain. "Mother, what's happening to me?" Celeste knelt beside her, though her spirit form didn't disturb a single blade of grass. "You are the last moon-blessed wolf. The seal I placed on your abilities, your inability to shift, was a protection, a way to hide your true nature." The convulsions intensified. Luna screamed, a sound that was part human, part something else entirely. Your power was too dangerous, Celeste continued. The old ones would have hunted you, destroyed you. So I bound your true self, waiting for the right moment. Luna's body arched. Something was changing, breaking. The protective seal her mother had placed was shattering like fragile glass. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the forest, Luna's scream transformed. No longer a sound of pure pain, but something more. A cry that seemed to resonate with the very moonlight itself. Her body was changing, but not into a wolf. Not into anything any pack had ever seen before. Luna's eyes fluttered open, the cave's dim light filtering through her blurry vision. The first thing she noticed was the smell. Earth, smoke, and something distinctly wild. Her body felt heavy, as if she'd been asleep for days. Easy now, a gruff voice said from nearby. She turned her head, wincing at the movement. A man sat near a small fire, his face marked with a network of scars that told stories of countless battles. He was watching her carefully, muscles coiled with a tension that suggested he could move quickly if needed. Who are you? Luna's voice came out as a rasp, her throat dry and scratchy. Name's Finn, the man replied, reaching for a water skin. Drink, slowly. He helped her sit up, supporting her back with a strong, calloused hand. As the cool water touched her lips, memories crashed over her like a wave. The palace, Darius's rejection, the strange transformation in the forest. How long have I been here? Luna asked, her eyes scanning the cave. It was surprisingly comfortable. A bedroll of soft furs, a carefully arranged collection of herbs and medical supplies, and a small fire that cast a warm glow. Finn's scarred face remained impassive. 7 days. You've been unstable. Something in his tone made Luna pause. Unstable how? A long pause. Finn seemed to be choosing his words carefully. You've been shifting, but not like any wolf shift I've ever seen. He leaned forward, firelight catching the sharp angles of his face. One moment you're human, the next, a wolf. Then, something else. Something I can't explain. Luna's hand instinctively went to her chest, feeling the phantom pain of her broken mate bond. I don't understand. Neither do I, Finn admitted, but every rogue in this territory felt something when you arrived. Your power, it's different. Unusual. He studied her, his eyes sharp and calculating. You're no ordinary wolf. Luna tried to concentrate, to call forth her wolf form as she'd done countless times before. Nothing happened. Her body remained frustratingly human. No hint of the supernatural transformation she'd experienced in the forest. Finn seemed to read her thoughts. Trying won't work, he said. Whatever happened to you is beyond normal wolf shifting. My mother, Luna whispered, memories of her spirit's revelation flooding back. She said I was moon-blessed, that she sealed my true nature. Finn's eyebrow raised. Moon-blessed? I thought those were just old stories. He reached into a worn leather satchel and pulled out a fragile, ancient-looking map. There might be answers. The old Moon Temple ruins. They're deep in rogue territory, forgotten by most pack wolves. Luna studied the man. Despite his rough appearance, there was something protective in his demeanor. A wariness, but not a threat. Why are you helping me? She asked. Finn's laugh was short and bitter. Let's just say I know what it's like to be cast out, to not fit into the neat little boxes the pack world demands. He touched one of his scars absently. Sometimes survival means finding your own path. The cave felt alive with potential, with secrets waiting to be uncovered. Luna looked at Finn, sensing he was more than just a random rogue who had found her. He was a guide, a protector. "The temple," she said. "We'll find it together." The journey through the dense forest was challenging, but Luna found herself adapting to the wilderness with an unexpected ease. Finn moved like a shadow between the trees, his tracking skills keeping them hidden from potential pursuers. On the second night, as they huddled around a small, carefully concealed campfire, Luna experienced her first dream-walking incident. She hadn't been sleeping, just staring into the flames, when suddenly the world around her shifted. She was inside another wolf's mind, a warrior stationed near the palace borders. His dreams were a jumble of anxiety and fragmented images. Through his eyes, she saw glimpses of tension within the palace walls. Selena's presence was like a cold blade, cutting through pack traditions with ruthless precision. "You're doing it again," Finn's voice cut through her trance. "Your eyes go all silvery when you're... wherever you go." Luna blinked, returning fully to their campsite. "I was in someone's dream. A border guard. Something's happening in the kingdom." Finn watched her carefully. "Moon-blessed wolves were said to have impossible connections," he murmured, sensing emotions across vast distances, walking through the collective unconscious of the pack. As if to prove his point, a wave of emotion suddenly crashed over Luna. It wasn't her own. It was foreign, complex. Confusion, doubt, a growing sense of unease that felt distinctly like Darius. She could feel his internal conflict. Selena was implementing harsh new laws, pushing the pack towards a more militant structure. The warrior-focused alpha was discovering that his new mate was more interested in total control than strategic leadership. "He's realizing he's made a mistake," Luna whispered, her hand unconsciously pressing against her chest where their mate bond had been severed. Finn remained silent, but his eyes tracked her every movement. The next day, they encountered a small group of rogues. Instead of conflict, Luna discovered she could calm their aggressive instincts with nothing more than a subtle projection of emotional peace. Her emerging abilities weren't just about seeing or sensing, they were about influence. When they finally reached the temple, it was nothing like Luna expected. Ancient stone structures partially consumed by forest growth, intricate lunar symbols carved into weathered surfaces. Moss-covered walls told stories in silent stone language. Finn's fingers traced one of the deeper carvings. "These prophecies," he muttered. "They speak of moon-blessed wolves who draw power directly from lunar cycles." Luna studied the intricate glyphs. Carved images showed wolves transforming not just between human and animal forms, but into something ethereal. Liquid moonlight given temporary shape. The most prominent carving detailed a rare celestial event, the eclipse moon. 2 months away, it represented a moment of maximum lunar power. For moon-blessed wolves, it was more than an astronomical event. It was a moment of transformation. "The eclipse moon," Luna read aloud, her fingers tracing the ancient symbols. "When the moon's light is both present and hidden, the true nature of the blessed will be revealed." Finn's scarred hand touched her shoulder. "Are you ready to understand who you really are?" The temple seemed to hold its breath, waiting for her response. The ancient temple's stone walls seemed to absorb Luna's growing power. Each day, her control became more precise, more intentional. Finn watched with a mixture of caution and wonder as she deciphered the cryptic texts left by generations of moon-blessed wolves before her. The scrolls were fragile, some crumbling at the slightest touch. But Luna's healing abilities extended to the ancient manuscripts, her fingertips restoring the delicate parchment as she read. She learned the terrifying truth of her lineage. Moon-blessed wolves were not just rare. They were dangerous. "They could break mate bonds," Luna whispered one morning, her fingers tracing a particularly intricate passage. Not just sever them, but completely destroy the connection between two wolves. Finn grunted. Which is why they were hunted. Mate bonds are sacred. A wolf who could casually break or forge them would be seen as a threat to pack survival. The texts revealed more. Healing wasn't just about mending physical wounds. Moon-blessed wolves could heal spiritual damage, restore broken connections, and even command the very essence of wolf magic. It was a power that threatened the traditional hierarchy of wolf society. Training was intense. Luna learned to focus her energy, to channel the moonlight that seemed to live within her veins. Rogues began to hear about the healer at the temple. Wounded wolves would arrive, desperate for help, and Luna would work miracles. A wolf with a festering wound from a silver weapon arrived one evening. The injury would have been fatal to most, but Luna placed her hands on the wound. Soft, luminous light pulsed from her palms, and within moments, the wound began to close. The wolf's eyes went wide with disbelief. "How?" he started to ask. "Rest," Luna said simply. The command was gentle but impossible to resist. Finn watched from the shadows, a mix of pride and concern etching his weathered features. "You're getting stronger," he observed. "But power like this always comes with a price." Luna's nights were far from peaceful. The nightmares began subtly at first. Glimpses of Darius, flashes of pain, a sense of something deeply wrong. She could feel his suffering through some connection that even the mate bond severance couldn't completely destroy. One particularly vivid dream pulled her into Darius's consciousness. She saw through his eyes, weakened, struggling. The palace halls seemed darker, more oppressive. Selena moved like a shadow, always present, always watching. She watched as Selena prepared a drink for Darius. Something about the way the liquid moved seemed wrong. Wolfsbane. A poison slow enough to weaken but not kill, designed to make him increasingly dependent and malleable. Luna couldn't help herself. She reached out. "Darius," she whispered in the dream space. His head snapped up, eyes searching. For a moment, he looked directly at her, truly saw her. The connection crackled with energy, more powerful than any mate bond they'd shared before. Luna could feel his pain, his confusion, the slow poison working through his system. Finn's voice echoed in the back of her mind. A warning. Stay away. Don't get involved. But Luna had never been good at following warnings. Her power surged, a protective instinct she couldn't control. In that moment, across hundreds of miles, she began to push the wolfsbane poison from Darius's system. The dream shattered. Luna gasped, moonlight erupting from her skin in brilliant, uncontrolled waves. The temple had become more than a sanctuary. It was now the center of a small, makeshift community. Rogues from various packs found their way to Luna, drawn by whispers of a healer with extraordinary gifts. Some came with physical wounds, others with deeper, more painful injuries that traditional medicine couldn't touch. Luna had changed. Her movements were more confident, her eyes bright with an inner light that seemed to pulse with the moon's rhythm. Finn watched her carefully, knowing that her growing power would inevitably attract attention. That attention came on a crisp morning when the first Shadow Pack scouts appeared at the edge of the settlement. Luna sensed them before anyone else. A prickling at the back of her neck, a sudden drop in temperature that made the air feel thick and dangerous. "They're here," she said quietly to Finn, who was already reaching for his weapons. The rogues around the temple tensed. Many were wounded, healing, or too weak to fight. Luna knew they were counting on her. The first attack came quickly. 3 massive wolves with midnight black fur burst from the tree line. Their eyes were cold, calculating. These weren't random attackers, but trained hunters with a specific purpose. Luna stepped forward, placing herself between the scouts and the settlement. Something deep inside her began to change. The moonlight that always seemed to hover around her skin grew brighter, more intense. "Leave," she commanded. The word carried a weight that was more than just sound. It was power. The lead scout snarled, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. He lunged. Luna's hands erupted with silvery white flames. But these weren't ordinary flames. Where they touched the attacking wolves, they burned with an impossible precision. Fur and flesh sizzled, but the ground remained untouched. The nearby rogues were unharmed. Moonfire. The scouts howled in pain, a sound of pure agony that echoed through the forest. 2 fell immediately, their bodies consumed by the ethereal flames. The 3rd managed to retreat, dragging a smoking, wounded form. Silence descended. Finn approached Luna, his eyes wide. "I've never seen anything like that," he said softly. Luna didn't respond immediately. Her mind was elsewhere, pulled by the dream-walking ability she was learning to control. The connection to the palace was strong tonight, fueled by her recent attempt to heal Darius from a distance. The dream space materialized around her. Darius sat in his war room, looking pale and drawn. Selena stood beside him, her hand resting possessively on his shoulder. Even in this mental projection, Luna could see the poison working through his system, subtle tendrils of wolfsbane weakening his natural defenses. "The Shadow Pack must be eliminated," Selena was saying, her voice smooth as silk. "They've become too bold. A preemptive strike will show our strength." Darius nodded, but there was something vacant in his eyes. He wasn't fully himself. The poison and Selena's manipulation were taking their toll. "Victor's forces are gathered near the eastern border," she continued. "We can crush them before they expect an attack." Luna wanted to scream. She could see the trap forming. Victor was waiting, had likely planned this entire scenario. Darius was being maneuvered into a devastating attack that would decimate his own forces. But she was just a projection. A ghost in the dream space. Darius began issuing orders, his once strong voice now a hollow echo of its former self. Selena watched, a slight smile playing on her lips. The dream began to dissolve around Luna. She was pulled back to the temple, to the moment of her victory against the Shadowpack scouts. Finn was organizing the rogues, assessing any potential follow-up attacks. But Luna stood motionless, the moonlight still dancing around her skin, the weight of what she had witnessed pressing down on her. A trap was being set, and Darius was walking straight into it. The young royal guard arrived just after dawn, his travel-worn cloak dusty from the hard ride. Luna could smell the palace on him, a mix of polished leather, pine wood polish, and the distinct metallic scent of royal blood. Finn watched suspiciously from the entrance of the temple, his scarred hands tense and ready. "I come alone," the guard said, dropping to one knee, "and with a message only for Luna." She studied him carefully. He was young, perhaps no more than 20, with the lean, muscular build of a royal guard trained since childhood. A small tattoo behind his ear marked him as part of the king's personal protection unit. His eyes held a mixture of fear and determination. "Speak," Luna said, her voice carrying a new authority that made even Finn take a step back. The guard's hands trembled slightly. Many in the palace suspect Selena's true intentions. Her alliance with Victor, the slow poisoning of King Darius, the preparations for war. Something is terribly wrong. He glanced around nervously. But fear prevents most from speaking out. Luna's heart remained cold. The pain of Darius's rejection still burned through her veins like poison. She had no interest in the kingdom's politics, in the world that had so easily cast her aside. "Why should I care?" she asked, her tone sharp as winter's first frost. The guard hesitated. Then, almost in a whisper, he added the words that would change everything. "The king calls your name in his fever. Every night he cries out for Luna, begging forgiveness." Something inside Luna trembled. The mate bond they'd shared, though forcibly broken, still carried echoes of their connection. She could feel the faintest pulse of Darius's pain, like a distant heartbeat. The guard continued, desperation creeping into his voice. "He's being manipulated. Selena is controlling everything, the war preparations, the council meetings. Victor's forces are positioned to destroy our army, and Darius doesn't see the trap." Luna's resolve wavered. Memories flooded back. Tender moments before Marcus's influence. The warmth of Darius's touch. The promise of their original bond. As twilight approached, the temple grew quiet. Luna sat alone, the moonlight casting soft shadows around her. And then, like a gentle whisper carried on silver rays, her mother's voice emerged. "The eclipse comes in 1 month," Celeste's spirit said. "Choose love or vengeance, but know that only one path leads to redemption." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Luna closed her eyes, feeling the complex web of emotions, hurt, anger, lingering love, weave through her consciousness. Her emerging moon. Blessed powers pulsed just beneath her skin, a reminder of the extraordinary destiny that now defined her. The choice before her was more than personal. It would impact entire wolf kingdoms. Finn watched from a distance, understanding that whatever decision Luna made would change everything. The young guard waited, hope and fear dancing in his eyes. Luna stood at the entrance of the ancient moon temple, her silvery eyes scanning the horizon as 2 weeks of intense training etched themselves into her muscles and spirit. The refugee wolves trickling into their sanctuary brought more than just physical wounds. They carried stories that chipped away at her carefully constructed emotional walls. Each day, Finn helped her refine her moon-blessed abilities. Her transformations were becoming more controlled, less painful. She learned to channel the liquid moonlight that ran through her veins, practicing her ability to phase through solid objects and understanding the delicate balance between healing and destruction. "Concentrate," Finn would say, watching her practice. "Feel the moon's energy inside you, not as an external force, but as part of your own essence." The temple's ancient walls seemed to pulse with ancient memories. Carved murals depicted moon-blessed wolves from centuries past, powerful beings who could manipulate mate bonds, heal mortal wounds, and command the very fabric of wolf society. Luna traced her fingers along the stone, feeling a connection to something far greater than herself. Refugee wolves arrived in small groups, each bringing fragments of the kingdom's unraveling story. A young Omega spoke of entire battalions lost in Victor's ambushes. An elder warrior described Selena's brutal new laws, how she was systematically destroying any resistance within the royal court. "The king is but a shadow of himself," one wounded scout told her, his body covered in fresh wounds. "Selena controls everything now. Those who speak against her disappear." Luna listened, her resolve hardening. She could feel the distant pain of the kingdom, a low thrumming beneath her skin that matched the moon's own rhythm. Her training intensified. She learned to project moonfire, a devastating weapon that burned only those with malicious intent. She practiced dream walking, extending her ability to sense emotions across greater distances. Finn watched her transformation with a mixture of awe and concern. "You're becoming something more than just a wolf," he would murmur. "Something the old texts warned about and feared." The refugee reports became more desperate. Tales of Darius's deteriorating condition filtered through, how he was slowly being poisoned, how his once powerful presence had been reduced to a mere puppet of Selena's manipulations. Each story felt like a needle piercing Luna's carefully constructed emotional armor. She remembered their bond, the moments of tenderness before Marcus's influence, the warmth of Darius's touch. The pain of rejection still burned, but something deeper was emerging, an understanding that went beyond personal hurt. On the 14th day, a group of refugees arrived with more detailed accounts. They spoke of entire Royal Guard units being systematically eliminated, of Selena's calculated destruction of the kingdom's defenses. The kingdom was bleeding, and only a miracle could stop its fall. Luna stood at the temple's highest point, her body beginning to shimmer with an otherworldly light. She was no longer just a healer, no longer just a rejected mate. She was becoming something entirely new, a weapon of lunar justice, a force that could potentially reshape everything. Her resolve was cracking, not from weakness, but from a growing understanding of her true purpose. The moon hung low, casting its silver light across the temple grounds. Luna's eyes reflected its intensity, her body hovering between human and something entirely supernatural. The moment of decision was approaching. The journey from the Moon Temple to the Royal Kingdom was unlike any migration of wolves in recent memory. Luna led 20 rogue volunteers, her presence so powerful that the very landscape seemed to bend around her. Wolves from distant territories instinctively bowed as she passed, sensing something ancient and profound in her moonlit form. Finn rode close to her, his weathered face etched with a mix of protective concern and reluctant admiration. He had watched Luna transform from a palace healer into a force of lunar energy that defied traditional wolf understanding. Her abilities had grown exponentially during their weeks of training, and now she moved with a grace that was neither fully human nor completely wolf. "The rogues who volunteered," Finn said quietly during a brief rest, "they're not just following you, they're believing in something bigger than themselves." Luna's silvery eyes scanned the landscape. The 20 wolves who accompanied her were a diverse group, some young, some scarred veterans, all united by a sense of profound injustice. They had heard the stories of the kingdom's destruction, of Selena's calculated betrayal, and they saw in Luna a potential for redemption. Their journey was strategic. They avoided main roads, moving through dense forests and mountain passes. Luna's ability to sense danger meant they could circumvent potential ambushes. At night, she would enter a meditative state, her consciousness expanding across the territorial lines, tracking the movement of enemy forces. On the third day, a scout returned with troubling news. The Shadow Pack had advanced further into the kingdom's territories than previously thought. Victor's strategy was clear: total annihilation, not just conquest. "They're not just fighting a war," Luna murmured, her fingers tracing ancient runes on a stone she carried. "They're attempting to erase an entire lineage." As they approached the kingdom's borders, the signs of devastation became more pronounced. Burned villages, abandoned farmlands, the occasional scattered bones of fallen warriors. Each mile told a story of systematic destruction. Finn noticed Luna's hands occasionally flickering with moonlight, an unconscious response to her growing emotional intensity. Her control was remarkable, but her power was becoming harder to contain. On the 5th day, they crested a hill and saw the capital. What had once been a gleaming fortress was now a battleground, smoke rising from multiple sectors, the sounds of conflict echoing across the landscape. Luna's dream-walking ability had already confirmed something strange. Selena was conspicuously absent from the battle. Her tactical brilliance suggested a deeper game was being played. With a gesture that seemed both deliberate and instinctive, Luna began to shimmer, Her body transformed into pure moonlight, phasing through physical barriers until she materialized in the heart of the palace, the throne room. Darius was barely recognizable. Chained to the elaborate throne where he had once ruled, his powerful body was reduced to a skeletal version of its former self. Concentrated wolfsbane poisoning had stripped away his strength, leaving him in a state between consciousness and feral madness. His eyes, when they finally focused on Luna, held a mixture of desperation and disbelief. The healing ritual consumed Luna entirely. Her luminescent form intertwined with Darius's broken body, moonlight seeping into every cellular membrane, burning away the toxic wolfsbane that had been slowly destroying him. The throne room became a vessel of pure white-silver energy, ancient magic older than any pack law or territorial dispute. Luna's hands pressed against Darius's chest, her fingers glowing with an intensity that made the stone walls shimmer. Each pulse of healing energy was like a needle threading broken connections, mending not just his physical form, but the fractured mate bond between them. The pain was excruciating, for both of them. Darius convulsed, his body fighting against centuries of poison. Sweat poured from his skin, mixing with Luna's ethereal light. Fragments of memories flashed between them. Their first meeting, stolen moments of intimacy, the brutal rejection, Selena's manipulation. The bond crackled like lightning, raw and wounded. Hours passed. The moon outside traced its slow arc across the night sky, casting long shadows through the palace windows. Luna never wavered. Her mother's teachings echoed in her consciousness. Healing was not just about removing damage, but restoring balance. As dawn's first light crept across the floor, Darius's breathing stabilized. The poison's dark tendrils retreated, dissolving into wisps of shadowy energy that Luna's moonlight systematically destroyed. When he finally opened his eyes, true consciousness returning for the first time in weeks, tears immediately welled up. "Luna," he whispered, his voice a broken instrument. "I'm so sorry." His hand trembled as he reached for her, hardly believing she was real. The apology carried decades of regret, not just for the recent betrayal, but for every moment he had allowed political manipulation to distance him from their true connection. Luna's touch was gentle. She didn't speak, understanding that words would shatter the fragile moment of reconnection. Their mate bond, once severed, now hummed with tentative healing energy. Suddenly, the distant sound of splintering wood echoed through the palace. Victor's forces had breached the outer gates. Darius struggled to sit up, weakness still coursing through his muscles. "They're here," he rasped. Luna's expression hardened. The soft healer was gone, replaced by something ancient and powerful. She could flee with Darius, ensure his safety, protect what remained of their rekindled bond. Or she could stand and fight. Her choice was instantaneous. Luna began to transform, not into a traditional wolf form, but something far more extraordinary. Liquid moonlight rippled across her skin, her body becoming a conduit of pure lunar energy. When she spoke, her voice resonated with power that seemed to come from beyond the physical realm. "We fight," she declared. The battle consumed the kingdom like a ravenous beast. Siege engines crashed against stone walls, and the air vibrated with the sounds of combat. Snarling wolves, screaming warriors, the metallic ring of weapons clashing. Luna's moonfire created a protective barrier at the main gate, her luminescent energy burning any Shadowpact soldiers who dared approach. Darius watched from a makeshift war room, his body still weak, but his mind sharp. Strategists and remaining loyal commanders surrounded him, tracking troop movements on large maps. Each hour brought new challenges. The kingdom's forces were outnumbered, and exhaustion was becoming their greatest enemy. On the second night, a terrible silence fell across the battlefield. The moon hung low and heavy, casting an unnatural pale light. Luna felt it first, a shift in the wind, a wrongness that made her wolf senses prickle with alarm. Victor's laughter rolled across the battlefield like thunder. "Behold the true weapon of the Shadow Pack," he shouted. The first infected wolf emerged from the shadows. Its eyes were pitch black, pupils completely dilated. Foam dripped from its jaws, and its movements were jerky, uncontrolled. When it bit another wolf, the infection spread instantly, like watching ink bloom across white fabric. Within moments, wolves began turning on their own pack members. The feral curse moved with terrifying speed, transforming disciplined warriors into mindless, rabid creatures. Loyal soldiers who moments before had been fighting side by side now ripped each other apart. Luna's moonfire barrier flickered. The curse was something beyond her current understanding, a dark magic that defied her healing abilities. She could see the infection spreading through wolf blood like a poisonous network, consuming rational thought and replacing it with pure, destructive instinct. Darius gripped the war table, his knuckles white. "We're losing," he said quietly. The strategists around him fell silent. They all knew what he meant. The feral curse would consume everything, not just their army, but potentially every wolf pack in the region. Luna approached the war room, her luminescent form casting soft light. She had been monitoring the battlefield, and now she understood the true horror of Victor's weapon. This wasn't just a battle strategy, it was a complete genetic weapon designed to destroy wolf society from within. "There might be a way," Luna said, her voice distant. The other wolves turned to look at her. She seemed different, less solid, more like a being of pure energy than a physical creature. Darius recognized that tone. It was the same voice she had used when discussing the ancient moon-blessed texts, the same tone that suggested something both miraculous and terrifying was about to be proposed. "No," he said immediately. "Whatever you're thinking, the answer is no." Luna's gaze met his. In that moment, every wolf in the room felt the weight of something ancient and powerful passing between them. A connection that transcended the current battle, that spoke of bonds older than any living wolf could remember. "I can forge a counterbond," she explained. "Not just between two wolves, between every wolf fighting here. A collective bond that would push back against the feral infection." The strategy seemed impossible. Bond forging was an intimate, individual magic. To attempt it on a massive scale would be like trying to paint an ocean with a single brush stroke. But Luna wasn't asking for permission. She was stating a fact. Darius stepped forward, his weakness momentarily forgotten. "The ritual would destroy you," he said. It wasn't a question. The ancient texts were clear. Such magic always demanded a sacrifice. Luna's smile was sad. "Either my life or my moon-blessed powers," she confirmed. "But if we do nothing, every wolf here dies, and the infection will spread far beyond this battlefield." The war room fell silent. Outside, the sounds of the feral battle continued, snarling, tearing, the sounds of pack turning against pack. Luna's decision crystallized with unbreakable resolve. The eclipse moon hung low and heavy, its silvery light seeping through the castle's highest tower windows. Her body began to transform, not into a wolf, not into her usual luminescent form, but something between, threads of pure moonlight weaving through her human shape. The first connection felt like liquid fire. When she reached out to the nearest wolf soldiers, their minds brushed against hers, raw, terrified, confused. The feral curse writhed within their blood like a dark serpent, and Luna understood she would have to draw each infection through her own body, filtering and burning it away. Pain exploded across her consciousness. Each wolf she touched sent waves of agony through her system. Memories of transformation, of uncontrolled rage, of the dark magic consuming their rational minds. Her form flickered dangerously, becoming translucent one moment, solidly human the next. Below, the battlefield churned with chaos. Wolves attacked indiscriminately, pack bonds shattered, loyalties meaningless under Victor's curse. Luna knew she was the kingdom's final hope. If she failed, the infection would spread beyond these walls, consuming every wolf pack in the region. Her mother's teachings echoed in her mind. Moon-blessed wolves were rare, sacred guardians who could manipulate the deepest magic of wolfkind. But no moon-blessed wolf had ever attempted a bond on this scale. Each connection threatened to tear her apart. Sweat beaded on her forehead. Blood leaked from her eyes, silvery and luminescent. With each wolf she purified, her strength diminished. She was becoming a living filter, drawing the darkness from hundreds of wolf bodies and burning it away with her own life force. The tower room filled with an unearthly light. Moonbeams seemed to pulse and breathe around her, responding to her desperate magic. Outside, the sounds of battle grew softer, not from silence, but from her magic slowly reasserting control. Just as her strength began to collapse, when her form threatened to dissipate entirely, she felt a familiar presence. Darius. His steps were slow, determined. Each footfall on the stone stairs carried the weight of his past mistakes, of his desperate desire for redemption. When he entered the room, Luna could see the toll of the past months. He was gaunt, pale, but his eyes burned with an intensity that matched her own magical radiance. "Let me help," he said simply. Luna wanted to refuse. The pain of his previous rejection still burned within her, but their severed mate bond, though damaged, wasn't completely destroyed. And in this moment of kingdom-wide crisis, ancient magic recognized a deeper truth than human emotion. Darius approached, his hand reaching toward her flickering form. "I love you," he whispered. "I was wrong. Forgive me." Luna's flickering form hesitated, suspended between acceptance and rejection. Years of pain, his betrayal, her exile, the severed bond, hung between them like a razor's edge. But as Darius extended his hand, something more primal stirred within her. Not submission, not forgiveness, but recognition. Their hands touched, and the world transformed. Moonlight erupted around them. Not silver, but a fusion of energies, Luna's luminescent power intertwining with Darius's raw alpha strength. This wasn't the traditional mate bond they once shared, where one dominated and the other submitted. This was something revolutionary, two powerful forces aligning in perfect, balanced harmony. Darius gasped as Luna's power flowed through him. He could feel every wolf in the kingdom, their pain, their terror, the dark curse consuming their minds. But where before he would have sought to control, now he worked in concert with Luna, filtering and healing. Her moon-blessed abilities sang through their reconnected bond. Each thread of moonlight that pulsed outward carried healing, breaking Victor's feral curse like sunlight dissolving shadows. Wolves on the battlefield suddenly stopped mid-attack, the dark magic draining from their systems. "Together," Luna whispered, her voice resonating with power. The eclipse moon reached its zenith. Their combined energy exploded outward, a cleansing wave that swept through the kingdom, paralyzing Victor's attacking forces and burning away the curse's corruption. Wolves dropped their weapons, confusion replacing rage, healing replacing destruction. In the battle's chaos, Selena saw her carefully constructed plan crumbling. She had manipulated Darius, poisoned him, orchestrated this war, all to destabilize the kingdom and create an opportunity for Victor's conquest. Now, with their power reforged, everything was unraveling. She turned to flee. Darius intercepted her. The king who once blindly trusted her was gone. In his place stood a wolf transformed by loss, by Luna's redemptive power. No longer would political manipulation or false charms sway him. "You thought you could destroy us," Darius growled, blocking Selena's escape. His voice carried the weight of his newfound understanding, no longer merely an alpha demanding obedience, but a leader who had learned true strength came from unity, not domination. The scene trembled with potential. Selena's fate balanced on a knife's edge. Victor's army neutralized. The kingdom suspended in a moment of magical transformation. The dawn crept slowly across the battered kingdom, pale light revealing the destruction and hope of the night's battle. Luna stood beside Darius on the palace balcony, their connection humming with a new, unexpected harmony. Wolves below moved cautiously, some staring up in awe, others with open fear. Her power was still visible, tiny threads of moonlight occasionally flickering between her fingers, a reminder of the extraordinary ritual that had saved them all. Darius watched her carefully, sensing the complex emotions churning beneath her calm exterior. "They're afraid," Luna murmured, watching the gathered wolves. Some bowed as she passed, while others kept a wary distance. The palace guards who once denied her entry now looked uncertain how to approach. Darius's hand found hers, their touch generating a soft pulse of shared energy. "Fear is natural when confronting something unprecedented," he said quietly. The words carried none of his previous authoritarian tone. Instead, they reflected genuine understanding. The trial of Selena would begin at midday. Preliminary investigations had already uncovered fragments of her long-term conspiracy with Victor. A plan years in the making, carefully designed to exploit the kingdom's rigid traditional hierarchies. Luna's healing tent had been set up in the central courtyard. Wounded wolves from both sides of the conflict received treatment, a deliberate statement of her commitment to healing rather than further division. Each wolf she touched seemed to relax, the lingering tensions of the battle melting under her gentle touch. When the first council members arrived to discuss Selena's trial, the tension was palpable. Elder wolves who had supported traditional power structures looked distinctly uncomfortable. Luna's presence challenged everything they believed about pack leadership. "A moon-blessed wolf cannot lead," muttered Elder Raken, his weathered face set in disapproval. "She cannot even shift in traditional wolf form." Darius's response was measured. "And yet she saved every single wolf in this kingdom last night." The challenge hung in the air. Luna watched the exchange, understanding the delicate political dance happening before her. These were not just arguments about her leadership. They were conversations about fundamental pack beliefs. Her mind drifted to the ancient texts she'd studied in the temple. Moon-blessed wolves had always been misunderstood, feared for powers that challenged conventional strength. They represented a different kind of leadership, one based on healing, connection, and collective survival rather than individual dominance. When Selena was brought in for her trial, the courtroom fell silent. She looked diminished, no longer the confident alpha female who had manipulated her way into power. The evidence against her was overwhelming. Correspondence with Victor, detailed plans of systematic kingdom destabilization, poison procurement records. Luna listened carefully as each piece of evidence was presented. Where once she might have been crushed by Selena's betrayal, now she felt only a profound sadness for the system that had created such desperate ambition. When it came time for her statement, Luna approached the center of the room. Moonlight seemed to follow her movements, casting a soft luminescence that made even the most skeptical wolves pay attention. Selena's actions were wrong, Luna began, her voice clear and compassionate. But punishment must serve justice, not revenge. We cannot heal our kingdom by perpetuating the same cycle of violence that brought us to this moment. Her advocacy for mercy was revolutionary. In traditional wolf justice, such betrayal would warrant execution. But Luna proposed rehabilitation, controlled confinement, systematic deprogramming, an opportunity for Selena to understand the harm she'd caused. The council members exchanged shocked glances. This was not the ruthless punishment they expected. This was something entirely new. Over the following month, the kingdom transformed under Luna and Darius's collaborative leadership. The ancient palace halls, once silent with rigid tradition, now echoed with new conversations and unprecedented gatherings. Luna's healing temple rose from the ruins of the Eastern Wing, a sanctuary that quickly became the heart of their social reformation. Wolves from every rank and background gathered here, warriors with old battle wounds, Omegas previously marginalized, and even rogues seeking reintegration. The temple's white marble walls were adorned with intricate murals depicting healing and unity, a stark contrast to the previous war-focused decorations. Darius supported her vision completely. Where he once saw strength only in physical combat, he now recognized the profound power of emotional and physical restoration. During council meetings, he would often defer to Luna's insights, a radical shift that sent tremors through the traditional power structures. Their bond, no longer the hierarchical mate connection of the past, pulsed with a shared energy. When Darius strategized military defenses, Luna's intuitive understanding would softly guide his tactics. When Luna conducted healing rituals, Darius's strategic mind would help her organize resources and support systems. Wolves who arrived at the temple were first surprised, then transformed. Young warriors learned that acknowledging vulnerability wasn't weakness, but a form of profound strength. Healers who were previously considered secondary to fighters now found themselves at the center of community rebuilding efforts. Elder Marcus, who had once manipulated Darius against Luna, now sat in a reduced advisory role, carefully monitored. His influence had been systematically dismantled, but he was allowed a path to redemption, a principle Luna insisted upon. The reforms weren't just structural, they were philosophical. Darius rewrote ancient laws that had previously ranked wolves solely by their physical shifting abilities. Now, a wolf's worth was measured by their contribution to community, their capacity for empathy, and their willingness to grow. Finn, the scarred rogue who had initially helped Luna during her exile, became a key advisor. His experiences with marginalized pack members provided crucial insights into creating more inclusive systems. He helped design rehabilitation programs for wolves who had been cast out or forgotten. When news spread of these radical changes, neighboring packs began sending delegations. Some arrived with genuine curiosity, others with more calculated intentions. Alpha representatives from the mountain and river packs came, their eyes keen with assessment. During one such diplomatic gathering, a mountain pack alpha named Garrett tried to probe the limits of Luna's abilities. "A moon-blessed wolf who cannot traditionally shift?" he challenged, his tone deliberately provocative. "How can you truly lead?" Luna's response was calm. She didn't transform into a wolf, but instead projected a soft moonlight that filled the room, making every wolf present feel simultaneously calm and energized. "Leadership isn't about the form you take," she said quietly, "but the healing you can bring." Darius stood beside her, their shared energy a visible connection that made even the most skeptical wolves take notice. The way they supported each other, not through dominance, but through genuine partnership, was revolutionary. The diplomatic meetings continued, each one slowly shifting the regional understanding of wolf society. Luna and Darius weren't just rebuilding a kingdom, they were reimagining an entire cultural paradigm. The Spring Moon Festival transformed the kingdom's central courtyard into a vibrant celebration of renewal. Lanterns crafted from moonstone glass hung from ancient oak branches, casting soft silver light across gathered wolves from every pack and territory. The air hummed with a mixture of anticipation and tension. Luna stood beside Darius, her silvery ceremonial robes a stark contrast to the traditional dark leathers of pack leaders surrounding them. 6 months after the eclipse battle had reshaped their world, the kingdom balanced on a knife's edge of transformation. Representatives from the most conservative packs, the Granite Ridge, Silverback, and Northern Timber packs, arrived with barely concealed hostility. Their leaders wore matching expressions of calculated disapproval, their wolves positioned strategically around the courtyard's perimeter. Alpha Rorik of the Granite Ridge pack stepped forward first. His weathered face carried the scars of 100 battles, and his voice carried the weight of generations of traditional wolf law. "Luna of the Moon, blessed," he called out, his tone deliberately formal. "We are here to discuss the threat you represent to our ancient ways." Darius tensed beside her, but Luna placed a gentle hand on his arm. Her touch, now a conduit of shared power, calmed him instantly. The watching wolves noticed this subtle interaction, a demonstration of their new kind of partnership. "I am listening," Luna responded, her voice calm and clear. Alpha Rorik's delegation included 10 senior pack leaders, each representing territories that had resisted the kingdom's recent reforms. Their argument was straightforward and brutal. Luna's unprecedented powers threatened the traditional hierarchical structure of wolf society. "You cannot be allowed to possess abilities that can break and remake mate bonds at will," Rorik declared. "Such power in the hands of a single wolf threatens every pack's autonomy." The courtyard fell silent. Wolves from younger generations watched intently, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and hope. Older wolves shifted uncomfortably, sensing the potential for conflict. Luna's response would determine more than just her personal fate. It would shape the future of wolf society. She stepped forward, her movements deliberate. The moonstone lanterns seemed to pulse in rhythm with her steps, casting intricate shadows that danced around her feet. When she spoke, her voice carried not just sound, but a subtle harmonic resonance that made every wolf present lean slightly forward. "My power is not a weapon," Luna said. "It is a connection. Would you hear how?" Alpha Rorik crossed his arms, clearly skeptical. But the younger wolves, those who had watched Luna's healing during the reconstruction, those who had seen her transform traditional thinking, listened with intense focus. Luna began to explain the deeper nature of her moon-blessed gifts. She spoke not of domination, but of understanding. She described how her abilities allowed her to sense the intricate emotional landscapes within wolf packs, to heal not just physical wounds, but the deeper psychological fractures that had long divided their society. "Strength isn't about control," she said. "It's about healing, about understanding, about recognizing that every wolf has value." Her words were measured, each sentence carefully constructed to challenge their most deeply held beliefs without directly attacking them. She offered something radical, a workshop where she would teach the fundamental principles of emotional healing to pack healers. "These abilities," she explained, "aren't exclusive. They can be learned by any wolf willing to open their heart and mind. What makes them powerful isn't some mystical bloodline. It's compassion." The scene hung in delicate balance, the outcome uncertain but pregnant with possibility. 1 year to the day after her exile, Luna stood on the same palace balcony where she had once watched Darius greet Selena, a moment that had shattered her world and ultimately reshaped an entire kingdom. Below, The courtyard bustled with a vibrancy that would have been unimaginable just 12 months earlier. Warriors trained alongside healers, their movements synchronized and respectful. Young rogues who had once been outcasts now moved with purpose, wearing kingdom insignias. Pups played together, their games teaching cooperation instead of dominance, a stark contrast to the rigid hierarchies of the past. Darius approached Luna, his steps measured and deliberate. The moonlight caught the silver threads woven into his formal jacket, a design that symbolized their shared power, not his individual authority. His hand found hers, their touch now a seamless connection of energy and intention. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice low and intimate. Luna turned, studying his face. Gone was the rigid alpha who had once rejected her without hesitation. In his eyes, she saw vulnerability, respect, and a deep, transformative love. "I am," she responded. The courtyard below slowly grew quiet as wolves of every rank and background gathered. They understood this was more than a simple mate bond renewal. This was a symbolic recommitment to the new world they were building together. Darius stepped forward first, addressing the assembled wolves. "1 year ago, I made a terrible mistake," he said, his voice carrying clearly across the gathering. "I allowed fear, tradition, and manipulation to blind me to the true strength of partnership." Luna watched as younger wolves nodded, while older pack leaders shifted uncomfortably. The transformation wasn't complete, but it was undeniable. When the time came for their vows, Luna insisted on something unprecedented. Instead of the traditional alpha-mate bonding ceremony, which historically positioned the female as a subordinate, she proposed a new ritual. "We will pledge to each other as equals," she announced. The ancient bonding platform stood ready, moonlight pooling around its ceremonial stones. Luna's robes shimmered with subtle lunar energy, a reminder of her moon-blessed heritage. Darius stood beside her, no longer towering or dominating, but standing truly beside her. As they began their vows, the entire kingdom listened. "I pledge not ownership," Luna said, her voice clear and strong, "but partnership." "I pledge not dominance," Darius responded, "but balance." Their words rewrote centuries of wolf tradition in a single moment. Wolves from conservative and progressive packs alike felt something shift, not just in the ceremony, but in the fundamental understanding of what it meant to be a pack, to be mates, to be strong. When they reached to touch hands and complete the bond renewal, something extraordinary happened. Their combined energy created a visible pulse of moonlight that spread across the courtyard, touching every wolf present. It wasn't a forceful magic, but a gentle, transformative wave that spoke of healing, understanding, and hope. The instructions were perfectly fulfilled. Under the full moon, Luna and Darius had pledged not ownership, but partnership, not dominance, but balance. As their combined howl echoed across the land, the moon itself seemed to shine brighter, blessing a new age where love conquered tradition and true power lay in embracing all aspects of the wolf within.